Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and this is part two of the round one preview. Today is Monday, the 5th of January, and I understand that the season is a couple of months away, but it will come up really quick. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, the NRL trials start in about 5 weeks. So it will come up quick. I think it's a matter of making sure that if you're an NRL nerd like myself, and you take your tipping comps very seriously and your fantasy very seriously and your super coach seriously and all those things, if you're in competition with family or mates, I think it's probably best to go into the NRL 2026 season with a bit of a plan, a bit of an idea of how you're going to tip, how you're going to be consistent tipping, because I think 2025, that season taught us that anything can happen. As of round 12, about 44% of games were upsets. So it goes to show that no matter how well prepared or planned you are, things are going to happen, which makes it very exciting. Which will not go to plan, but I think it's a matter of trying to be consistent through the season as much as you possibly can. So let's go through part two of round one. I've done the Knights and the Cowboys, the Bulldogs and the Dragons, which are the first two games of the season in Vegas, kicking off on Sunday, March 1st, 2026. Then the Thursday game, I've just done the Storm and the Eels in the previous podcast. And I mentioned that I think the Storm will win that big at Amy Park. Now, the Friday night game is the Warriors and the Sydney Roosters. I think that's going to be an outstanding game of football. That's a real 50-50 game, I think it's fair to say. But you know what? I'm going to go the Warriors because I think they're playing at home. It's going to be a sellout most likely at Mount Smart Stadium. And I think they've sold out pretty much every game since the beginning of 2024. So, 2023, when Andrew Webster first came to the club and they made a prelim final. I think that the Warriors will win this game. The Roosters, I'm just not convinced that the combination between Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker in the halves will combine quickly. I think it could take a while. By the end of the season, no doubt the Sydney Roosters could end up winning the premiership. But I do feel that Sam Walker and Daly Cherry Evans may take half a season to really properly combine as halves. Only because I feel that these two players are so similar. I feel that Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker play that eyes up footy, running half sort of a style of a game. And I remember an interview a few years ago between Daly Cherry Evans and Kieran Foran, and they both mentioned that they were surprised that Foz had the 6 and Daly had the 7 by the way they played. They felt that Kieran was more of an organising half and more structured, as Daly Cherry Evans was more than as an eyes up footy number 6, like a Cameron Munster sort of thing. They may combine very quickly, very easily from round 1, round 2 onwards. But for me, I just think they're very similar halves, and they play. The way that Sam Walker plays football reminds me a bit of the way Daly Cherry Evans runs the football side in Manly for so long. Daly Cherry Evans will play what he sees, and so does Sam Walker. So I wonder whether or not that could be an advantage for the Roosters, or it could be a disadvantage to start the season. Two quality halves, two amazing. Amazing halves. I mean, you look at that on paper. Number 6, Daly Cherry Evans, 7, Sam Walker. But, it's going to be a challenge for DCE too, to step back from that number 7 jersey and to not run the side and let a kid run the side as well. Sam Walker's around 22, 23 years of age, I think. And I think, it will be a challenge consistently for Daly Cherry Evans not to make the mistakes that James Tedesco made in 2023, where to not overdo it, to not get too involved, and to trust his teammates around him and trust the process, trust the Roosters' plan. And I think it will be a challenge for DCE to step back and allow Sam Walker to run the side. You look at Daly Cherry Evans, who's been the halfback of Manly since 2011, a lot of success in the early years of his career at Manly. But then, Sam Walker as well, a tremendous halfback, a tremendous 7, but they both play a real similar style. Now, the reason I think it could work, and I could be proven wrong here, is because, you look at Jerome Hughes and Cameron Munster, they play a real similar style of football as well. Jerome Hughes, if he sees an opportunity, he will take it, as does Cameron Munster, who I think is so good that even he doesn't know what he's about to come up with. So Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker, in my opinion, the Roosters will end up having a really good season in the NRL for 2026. I think they'll be up there, no doubt. I think if they don't make a grand final with the team they've got, then it's probably a failure. I think that they will be there at the end of the year. For me, I've got the Bulldogs and the Melbourne Storm in the grand final for 2026, but I can see the Roosters getting to a prelim. They'll be there at the back end of the year, you'd think. But I've got the Wars winning this. Luke Metcalf will return from an ACL injury. I think it was midway through last year. I just think the Warriors will get up at home. James Fisher Harris, Mitch Barnett. I'm pretty sure he'll be back. I'll have to double check that one, but the latest I heard was he will return for round one. So I will have to double check that. But what a player he is. And, he played a brilliant game against Queensland in game one Origin. He then tears his ACL. I think it was against South Sydney for the Warriors. And then New South Wales lose game two and game three. And I think they really missed out on the experience and just the leadership of Mitch Barnett. What a turnaround his career is. At Newcastle, he was pretty ruthless. He'd get sin binned. His discipline was really poor. And now he's just such a leader, not just for the Warriors, but in the game. People look up to him as a player, as a person. Tremendous player, Mitch Barnett. So, if he's back, I reckon, they can do some really good things too in this game. I think it'll be really close, the Warriors and the Roosters, but my tip here will be the New Zealand Warriors, only because it's at home. I just think the sold out Mount Smart Stadium crowd, of course it'll be sold out, surely, round one, start the year in New Zealand. That is the 6 p.m. Friday night game, and the 7:30 p.m. or the 8 o'clock 8 p.m. Friday night game is the Broncos and the Panthers at Suncorp Stadium. This is going to be a really interesting game, another 50-50. I feel the first three games of this round, Knights, Cowboys, most people will probably tip the Cowboys based on the Knights getting the wooden spoon last year. Bulldogs, Dragons, I think most people will go the Bulldogs. And Storm, Eels, I think most people will tip the Storm. So those first three games relatively, I might probably get all three wrong. Who knows? But I think most people will tip the same teams to start the season. But those Friday games, the Warriors and the Roosters and the Broncos and the Panthers, they are tough. They really are 50-50s. Broncos versus Panthers. Don't know. Oh, man. I think I'm going to go Broncos. I think I'm going to tip the Broncos here. Suncorp Stadium, round one. You'd think that'll be a sellout as well to start the season. Defending premiers up against the four-time premiers from 2021 to 2024. I'm going to go the Broncos based on the home crowd. But don't be surprised. The Broncos are going over to England in February to play in the World Club Challenge. I'm pretty sure that's over in England against Hull FC. So that's going to be, that could either make or break them in terms of starting the season well. I'm going to go the Broncos based on the fact it's at Suncorp, but I genuinely believe that the Panthers obviously are a huge chance of winning this. The last game Penrith played was a prelim final against the Broncos in at Suncorp Stadium. So they'll be out for revenge, redemption. They'll be pretty angry of how they lost that game. And Brisbane, at the end of the day, were the side that ended the dynasty. They beat Brisbane, they beat Penrith, and then they beat Melbourne to win the grand final. One of the great finals runs in NRL history. Probably the best, to be honest. So I'm going to go the Broncos in that game. Super Saturday for round one. The 5:30 game will be the Cronulla Sharks against the Gold Coast Titans at Shark Park. I'm going to go the Sharks here. I just think that they've had a side together now since 2022. So Craig Fitzgibbon came to the club 2022, and they've pretty well had the same side since then. So the combinations are already set. The coach has been there for 4 or 5 years now. So the Gold Coast Titans, I'd love to see them have a better year, but I think a new halfback, Lachlan Ilias, a new coach. It may just take them a couple of weeks to get really comfortable and aware with different combinations and all that. But I'm going to go Cronulla in Cronulla. I think the Sharks can win this and win this pretty well. Manly and the Raiders. Look, I'm going to go Manly here, and I genuinely believe that it could be a long season for Manly, but I think they can win this game. There's no doubt that Jamal Fogarty is a huge loss for Canberra, so it's going to be really interesting to see what Ricky Stewart does with the Canberra Raiders halves. Is he going to go? Obviously, he'll go Ethan Strange at 6, but is he going to go Kobe Black or Ethan Sanders? For me, I think he's going to start Sanders. But Kobe Black, I think that they've got it. Is it 19 men now? So they've got 6 guys on the bench and 2 replacements. 18 and 19 are replacements if they get too many HIAs. But I think Kobe Black will be in that 18, 19 as that 18th, 19th man early on in the season. But I genuinely believe that Manly can win this game based on the fact that Manly have started well under Seabold. They don't necessarily finish well under Seabold, but they start well. I think they've won every round 1 game as Anthony Seabold took over in 2023. So they do start well. I do think Jamal Fogarty is a huge gain for Manly. There's a world where Manly have a really good year and make the top 4, and I hope I'm right. And there is a world where if you look at their team on paper, they can actually win the premiership. But I just haven't seen enough from this team over the last few years to suggest that they can go that extra step under Anthony Seabold. I hope I'm wrong. Unfortunately, I have to put my Manly bias hat aside and be real on the podcast. I do think it could be a long season for Manly. Not necessarily bottom 4 or anything like that, but I'd think anywhere from 6th to 12th. I think they need to find their DNA again. But hopefully Kieran Foran can bring that back to the club. Manly, for me, will win this game, but I think overall the Canberra Raiders will most likely have a better season. But it may just take Ethan Sanders a couple of games to really combine alongside Ethan Strange. There was a game they played in the halves last year against the Sydney Roosters, and Canberra won that game, and Sanders was fantastic in that game. Really, really good and strong. So absolutely there's a world where Raiders could put a big score on Manly here, but I'm just going to go Manly at 4 Pines Park on that 7:30 Super Saturday night game. The Sunday afternoon football, just the one game for round 1. That'll be the Dolphins against South Sydney up at I think it's Suncorp Stadium here, so it's a Dolphins home game. I'm gonna go Souths. Yeah, I mean it's hard. We haven't got the team lists and all that out there, but you look at Souths, they're going to have a pretty strong team round 1. Dolphins didn't start well last year. I do think they are going to have a good year in 2026. I really do. But I think South Sydney can win this game. And to be honest, I actually think they could win it well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play South Sydney. I mean, they had the best completion rate of any side in 2025. So if they can complete well in this game, then I genuinely believe they can win the game. I mean, Isaiah Katoa is obviously a huge threat for South Sydney. They're going to keep an eye on him, but I do believe that South can win this. I just think that Keon Kalamatangi, he's going to have a big year for Souths to finish his career at South Sydney before he goes, not his career, but his time at South Sydney before he goes over to St. George. I think South Sydney are one of the big improvers for 2026 alongside the North Queensland Cowboys. So for that game, I'm going to go South Sydney. Going to be really interesting to see how Wayne Bennett starts South Sydney in terms of team list, whether or not he'll start at fullback with Jai Gray. I think it's a must that Jai Gray starts at fullback and Latrell Mitchell moves back to the centres. Perhaps they move Campbell Graham to the wing alongside Alex Johnston on the other wing. But yeah, I think South Sydney can win that. So the West Tigers are the team that have the bye in round 1, which is, in my opinion, complete bullshit. I feel sorry for the fans. That's twice in 3 years. 2023, they had the bye in round 1, and again in 2026. So 2024, I think it was. Yeah, 2024, they had the bye round 1, and then they played the Raiders in week 2 in 2024. So, pretty disappointing, not going to lie. I think the Tigers, you know, we want them to make the eight. We want them to do really well, not just not just for the game, but just for the supporters. One of my best mates, Nathan, is a long, hard, tragic, long time Tigers fan, and ever since I've known him, they haven't made the finals since 2011, which is such a long time ago. To think that Daly Cherry Evans has now played 330 odd, 355 or something games. Uh, and his first year was the last time Tigers made the finals. Goes to show how long it is. So I think the NRL need to really prioritise the Tigers in terms of draws down the track. I know it's done by AI and Chat GPT. Chat GPT, yeah. I always get it wrong. Chat GPT, or I get the fucking letters wrong. But yeah, I think the Tigers. I really hope they have a good year. Really interesting to see Taylor May and Terrell May, their podcast at the moment, the way they talk about playing for Benji. Terrell May had Appy Coruscant on his podcast recently, and Appy Coruscant's, they both said to each other they wouldn't be at the Tigers unless Benji was the coach. So the thing about the Tigers is they have a coach that they're playing for, and they were speaking about the balance between Benji getting on with the players, but also being a coach at the same time. They said not many coaches have that balance, and Benji has it, and they said it's a breath of fresh air. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Tigers go in 2026. I think they will improve, but maybe perhaps not finals until 2027. But they have got the bye in round one. So that is round one preview. I know it's the 5th of January. I am getting a bit excited, but if you're a hardcore tipper and a rugby league nerd like me, I use iTip Footy. For me, that's one of the best tipping comps to use. You can get a joker round where it's double points for one round of the year you pick. I play it based on the odds. So I'm in a family tipping competition with about 20-25 people. And basically, say if the Bulldogs are $1.36 and, Gold Coast are $4.10, and I think the Gold Coast Titans could beat the Bulldogs on just a random upset, and I pick $4.10, then you get 4.10 points. So you get points based on the odds. So you get rewarded for the upset. So I like the way that's scored better than just the 1 point. If you get an upset, you get rewarded for it. So iTip Footy, I highly recommend for all those tipsters out there. So that's round one. I'll go through the fixtures again. Sunday, March the 1st. As I said, it's still a little while away, still just under 2 months away, but it'll come really quick. It'll absolutely fly by. So let's start getting organised as rugby league nerds and rugby league fans. And if you really want to win your competitions, let's start getting organised. Let's start getting a bit of a game plan. As I mentioned on the previous podcast in part one of round one, I think as a tipster, you want to try and get 6 out of 8 every week, and that will not happen. And if it does happen, you're an absolute freak. But if that's the aim, look at it like you're a football team or you're a head coach and your tipping team gets 6 out of 8, then you get the win that week. That's 2 points. So, as I mentioned, the fixtures for round one: Knights versus Cowboys, Sunday, 1st of March. That's the first game of the season for Vegas. The other Vegas game is the Canterbury Bulldogs against the Dragons. And then a few days later is the rest of round one. Thursday night football, the Melbourne Storm against the Eels. I've gone the Cowboys to beat the Knights, the Bulldogs to beat the Dragons, both big scores in those Vegas games. The Melbourne Storm to smash the Parramatta Eels at Amy Park. The Warriors and the Roosters, I've gone the Wars in a tight one, just based on the fact that they're playing at home and it will be a sold-out crowd. I've gone the Broncos over the Panthers. I'm going Brisbane at home. The Sharks versus the Gold Coast Titans, I'm going the Cronulla with a big win there. The Manly Sea Eagles and the Raiders, I'm going Manly in that one. And the Dolphins versus South Sydney, I've gone the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, and Tigers get the bye. So that's my round one preview. Part two, this is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. If you haven't done so already, please follow me on Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're just a rugby league fan that is just desperate for rugby league content, consistently through 2026, then this is the podcast for you. There's many great podcasts out there: Rugby League Guru, The Buy Around with James Graham, Bloke in a Bar. Bloody, if you want a bit more extra content too, then I'm really happy to do my thing, and I want you guys to leave comments if you disagree, agree. Feel free to have an opinion on the YouTube channel or Spotify. I'd really appreciate it, because I want to try and create a good rugby league forecast podcast community where you've where everyone feels involved and a part of. So thank you very much for listening. My name is Connor Moran, and that is the round one preview for part 2.